Hello everyone, and welcome to GT Boxing. There are fights we've waited years for. Fights where styles, eras, and legacies collide. Fights that don't rely on marketing, but on the men who bled and suffered to earn their place in boxing's hierarchy. Once upon a time, this sport valued the champion's road. The journey from amateurs to professionals, from dusty gyms to sold-out arenas, from nameless sparring sessions to marquee fight nights. Boxing is art. It's craft. It's the mathematics of movement, a rhythm, a mystery, a fragile balance between risk and reward. That's why we love it. For the drama, for the technique, for the simple truth that in this sport, pretenders never last long. But times have changed. Professional boxing has always been a business, but at least in the old days that business tried to disguise its true motives. Today, the masks are off. Money decides everything. Titles, resumes, win streaks, the level of your opposition. These used to be the language of boxing. Now the only number that matters is how many followers you have. The louder seller beats the smarter puncher. And if there's a show that can generate millions, it will be made. No matter how close to zero, the sporting value drops. That's exactly what happened today, November 17th. With the official announcement of a fight that should never have existed in any sane boxing universe. Anthony Joshua versus Jake Paul. Two worlds that were never meant to intersect. Two realities that, by boxing's very nature, should remain galaxies apart. But in the era of clicks, influencers, and viral posters, anything is possible. And the more absurd the idea, the bigger the interest. Which is why we're now looking at a former heavyweight king headlining against a man who built his career fighting bloggers, TikTok personalities, retired basketball players, and weathered UFC veterans. Jake Paul's road to this so-called historic moment is practically its own comedy genre. He began with hype fights, events where the production mattered more than the technique. First came other YouTubers and homemade boxers with zero experience. Then he moved to athletes from unrelated sports, Nate Robinson, who could barely hold a stance. After that came the former UFC champions, Tyron Woodley, undersized and out of form by the time they met. Anderson Silva, an MMA legend, but old, slow, and worn down. Every opponent Paul faced was someone who used to be dangerous, but certainly not at the moment Paul shared a ring with them. The one time Jake fought a real boxer, far from a top contender, Tommy Fury. He lost. And he lost to someone the boxing world doesn't consider anywhere near elite. After that, Paul shifted into an exhibition with Mike Tyson. A living legend, yes, but nowhere near an active fighter. And now he's climbing even higher. Toward Joshua, a man from a completely different universe. To appreciate how absurd this matchup truly is, you need to remember who Anthony Joshua actually is. He's not a blogger. Not an entertainer, not a man who was catapulted into the mainstream without sporting substance. He's an Olympic champion, a former ruler of the heavyweight division, a fighter who walked the real road, took on all comers, and clawed his way up with grit and skill. His record is a list of actual names. He stopped Vladimir Klitschko in one of the greatest fights of the decade. He knocked out Dillian Whyte in a brutal war. He dismantled Kubrat Pulev, dominated Alexander Povetkin, beat Joseph Parker, Andy Ruiz, Robert Helenius, and a long list of legitimate heavyweights who weren't stepping into the ring for clout. Joshua traveled the path from London 2012 to the heavyweight throne. His level of technique, athleticism, discipline, and professional grounding is incomparably beyond anything Jake Paul can offer. They do not belong in the same conversation, and everyone knows it. Technically, Joshua is dangerous in every department. Reach, power, his jab, his hooks, his ring generalship, his experience in trench warfare fights, his sense of distance and rhythm. He adapts, he adjusts, he solves elite-level problems. Paul has never stood in front of a real heavyweight. He has never felt the pressure of a man who hits like industrial machinery. Joshua has faced the best heavyweights on earth. Paul has beaten fighters who had long outlived their competitive prime. Yet, despite all this, the world will witness an exhibition. A pseudo-sporting spectacle with massive brands, colossal sponsorships, and rivers of cash. And let's be absolutely clear, Jake Paul's team would never take such a risk without guarantees. Not guarantees of victory. Nobody in their camp is delusional. Guarantees that Paul will survive, that he won't be destroyed, that he can lose respectably in a way that can be spun into a marketing triumph. Jake stood up to a heavyweight champion. For Joshua, though, even that is humiliating. Any close scorecard in a fight like this would stain his reputation. But money doesn't smell. Modern boxing is no longer pure sport. It's cinema, choreography, a billion-dollar emotion factory. And if someone offers you an astronomical purse to appear slightly less dominant, history shows many will say yes. The strangest part? Everyone understands exactly what this fight will be. Everyone knows it will be rehearsed. Everyone knows Paul won't come to win. He'll come to endure. Everyone knows the sporting element will be diluted to the point of parody. And yet, the interest remains. Because this is a collision between authenticity and imitation, between a fighter and a caricature of a fighter. It's the kind of spectacle you don't want to look at, but you can't help watching. Promoters are thrilled. Streaming platforms are thrilled. Advertisers are ecstatic. This kind of fight generates millions of views, tens of millions of dollars, and global attention. It's a monster devouring traditional boxing, and it's shameful. Because while the UFC builds its rankings on real merit, where you cannot buy your way into a title shot, professional boxing is sinking deeper into the swamp of entertainment, masquerading as sport. In comparison, the UFC seems purer, stricter, and more honorable. There, the climb to the top cannot be purchased. Victories matter, followers don't. Meanwhile, boxing today prioritizes posters, names, scandals, and clicks. And so, we stand at the threshold of an event that is equal parts comedy, irritation, and guilty curiosity. Joshua versus Paul is a fight that should not exist. A fight that devalues the journey of a champion. A fight that turns boxing into a circus. A fight that shows the world just how far this sport has drifted from common sense. And a fight that, despite everything, you will still watch. Because this is the era we live in. Because this is the absurdity of our time. And because sometimes you simply want to see what happens when reality meets parody. In the end, only one conclusion remains. This fight does not make boxing stronger. It does not make it cleaner. It does not make it better. It highlights exactly what the sport has become. A colossal machine for selling emotions. But perhaps that's why millions still watch. And if this episode helps someone understand why boxing resembles its former self less and less, then we've done our job. All that's left now is to watch. To watch how the sports world once again chooses money over meaning. To watch how even the most implausible matchup can become the biggest event of the year. If the participants are famous enough, one real fighter, and one man simply playing the role of a boxer. What do you think about this fight? Maybe I'm wrong, and it will turn into a real contest? Share your thoughts in the comments. That's all for today. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you never miss our exclusive videos. See you next time.